What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the BaseLINE podcast. I'm your host, BenLine Newman. And guys, we hit our first milestone of the podcast. We have reached our 10th episode of the BaseLINE. I just want to thank you guys so much for all the support so far and helping me get to 10 weeks of the BaseLINE podcast, and I cannot wait to keep creating more episodes of this podcast for you guys. Now, what are we going to be talking about today? Now, I know we've been talking a lot of basketball within the last few weeks, but this has been it's a very exciting time as, you know, the basketball season is currently wrapping up. The NBA regular season is all said and done. It is over, and now we are going to be talking about the NBA playoffs as well as picks for who we think is going to win what awards and things like that. And with that being said, my guest today is a Raptors super fan.
We the North, you know what I mean? We ready. Playoff ready.
Playoff ready. And with that, I'd like to introduce my good friend and special guest, my man Dino. How are we doing today?
My man Ben, thank you so much for having me on this platform. I've been dying to spew some propaganda on your platform, so I'm excited. I'm super excited. Thank you.
Drake, you better be watching because it's going to be a good one.
I need courtside tickets. I need everything, so you know what I mean? Let me know.
So before we even get to the playoffs, we're going to start off with the NBA awards. Of course, we have to start off with the voting for MVP race. Now, the MVP race is most likely to be out of the three people that we saw last year, being Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, I personally don't necessarily agree with all these picks in here. I mean, I agree they're obviously very amazing players, but I feel like we talked about this before shooting, that there are a lot of players that we think also deserve to be in this race.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, for sure. You know, it's interesting, like, media always has a different narrative for MVP every single year. It's kind of interesting, like, how it works. Like, Jokic, had an amazing year, you know what I mean, considering the circumstances, you know, not having Jamal Murray, not having Michael Porter Jr. as well. But they only won 48 games. The last time someone won MVP with less than 50 games was Russell Westbrook, and that was his historic little triple-double season. But other than that, like, the last, 40 years before that never happened. So it's interesting how they kind of change the narrative each and every year depending on the players. But yeah, you know what I mean?
I mean, Jokic did break a pretty big record this year, though. First player to ever score, 2,000 points, 1,000 rebounds, and 500 assists in a single season. First player to ever do it.
Yep.
His team is about the same place that they were last year without Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., which is honestly kind of scary to think about.
Yeah, absolutely.
You also have a player like Joel Embiid, first center to score 30 points per game since Moses Malone did it back in the 80s.
Right, yeah. First scoring champ as a center since Shaq, right? So, yeah, great season for him.
And then also you have a player like Giannis, two-time MVP, defensive player, finals MVP. I mean, we all know Giannis's career at this point. But, I mean, we also have other players that probably aren't going to be in this final race that I think deserve it. I mean, you talk about number one seed in the Suns. Devin Booker has had an incredible season, and it's really gone without anybody talking about it.
Yes, that is very true. I mean, Chris Paul missed a big chunk of the season, especially post-All-Star break. And, you know, like, I see their 27 points per game, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Like, those are elite numbers for a wing. And they are literally the most winning team in, like, last how many years, you know what I mean? So, 64 wins this season. That has to do a lot with Devin Booker. I mean, the Suns team is nowhere near where they are without him. And obviously, you know, Chris Paul has a big impact, but, you know, the shooting that Devin Booker brings and just his go-to, like, he's just a go-to guy. You know, Chris Paul isn't a go-to guy, in my opinion, like that. So, yeah, I think Devin Booker deserves a lot more love than he's been getting this season.
So with the race that we can probably predict being the final between Jokic, Embiid, and Giannis, I think I would have to put my pick with Nikola Jokic. I mean, again, this man shouldn't be able to do what he can do as a center, as a 7-foot center, being able to pass the way he can, dribble the way he can. We talked about the first ever player to have that many points, rebounds, and assists in a season.
Yes.
So, for me at least, Jokic is my pick for MVP.
Yeah, I ended up going with Jokic as well just because of, you know, I kind of didn't make it seem like it at the beginning of this, like, segment, but he does deserve MVP this year, without a doubt. 27 points per game, 13 rebounds per game, 8 assists per game as a center. I mean, he's the best passing big man ever. Like, there's no debate about this. Like, what he's done with the Nuggets to get them to the 6th seed in a tough conference, like, yeah, it deserves a lot of praise, and he deserves MVP again this year, no doubt.
Now, moving on from that, we have the Defensive Player of the Year award. Now, I feel like this one's kind of hard to pick from. There's a lot of good options.
No doubt.
Rudy Gobert, of course, always have to put him in there. Giannis Antetokounmpo, of course. But you also have players like Bam Adebayo, Marcus Smart, and Mikal Bridges, who have really been very solid defensive pieces for their teams this year. What do you think about this?
Yeah,
Dino?
I'm with it. I have none of those guys winning Defensive Player of the Year though this year. And this is the toughest award for me to pick by far because I don't think there's been one standout really. So it's a difficult one for sure. But I like Mikal Bridges. I think he's a huge piece for the Suns. Like he's always going to guard the best offensive player on the other team, which is great. Bam, he's a very good center. He's very versatile. He can guard a lot of positions, arguably 1 through 5. And then Marcus Smart, I just can't vote for a Celtic, so it's not going to happen. So, who you got, man, between those people?
Oh, man, it's a really hard one. I'd say my 2 picks would be Bam or Mikal Bridges. I mean, both teams, the Heat and the Suns, are the first seeds in their respective conferences, and it's a big part to both of these guys' defense. I mean, I think I might have to give the edge to Mikal Bridges, though. He is been a key piece to this defense. When he's not playing, it really impacts how the Suns are playing. And, I mean, he's probably the best defensive piece on that Suns team, who are the second best defensive team in the NBA.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I can't be mad at that. I ended up going Rudy Gobert again, and I know that's like not a popular pick, but look, man, like he said like recently, if his name was not Rudy Gobert, people would be picking him all the time. You know what I mean? He's been sensational defensively. Like you put him on any good defensive unit, like that's a generational defensive big. Like, no matter what you say, I know he's not the best offensive player, but in terms of what he brings on the defensive side of the ball, it can't really be replicated at that position, in my opinion. And again, the Jazz haven't had the most amazing season, but I just think he's still the Defensive Player of the Year this year, no matter what.
Now, moving on from that, we have the Rookie of the Year award, obviously giving out to the best rookie of the NBA this season. Now, I know Dino and I are definitely going to disagree on this one. He's obviously a Raptors fan. I grew up a Pistons fan. And this is where we talk about it. So I'm going to be talking about the one player that we're not going to be rooting for, and that's going to be Evan Mobley, who has had a very great season for the Cavaliers. I mean, 15 points a game, 8 rebounds, nearly 2 blocks per game. He's been a big piece in why the Cavs had success at one point this season.
Yes, no doubt. I love his partnership with Jared Allen. I think they got something special there. I'm going to be honest with you, when the season started, I had no hope for that front court. I was like, there's no way. I seen Mobley more as a center in today's league, but he's done a very good job in proving me wrong that he can play the forward spot. And he kind of he's not a Kevin Durant kind of player, like in terms of getting buckets, but in terms of his size and like being able to like stretch across the floor, play any position really, I love him as a player. I really do. But he is not Rookie of the Year. No chance. He was spoon-fed all season by Darius Garland. I'm not having it. You can go ahead with the next player.
All right, well, I'm going to be talking about Cade Cunningham, of course, Pistons rookie. And now Cade had a very, very rough start to his season. I'm not going to lie.
Understatement.
But since the All-Star break, this man has really stepped up his game. He has more 25 in 5 games than every single other rookie combined this season. I mean, that's incredible scoring. That's incredible everything on the floor. He can really do a little bit of everything on the floor. Now, I think his shooting could be a little bit better. It could be a little bit more efficient. But, Kobe was never the most efficient guy on the court. And Cade's only 18 years old. He has plenty of time to get those efficient numbers up.
I'm with you. I think the Pistons hit it on the money drafting him. You know what I mean? Like, he's a great player. I honestly see a little bit of Luka in him. Like, I think he's a baby Luka in a lot of ways. And, he's only going to get better for Detroit. I think Detroit has a building block finally that they can put pieces around. They have another top 5 pick coming up this year probably. So, those are 2 building blocks for the Pistons. Maybe the future's bright. I love Cade as a player. I really do. But there is a special forward that plays for the Toronto Raptors. And his name is Scotty Barnes, Ben.
Yeah.
Go ahead and read me his stats. Go ahead and tell me what you think of this amazing player that is Scotty Barnes.
Well, I mean, Scotty Barnes has had an incredible season. Very, very big part to the early success that the Raptors had this season. Obviously, they dipped off a little bit and had to bring it back.
Yes.
But Scotty Barnes, early on, was seen as the Rookie of the Year, hands down. 15 points a game, 7.5 boards as like a 6'7" forward.
Yeah.
And a steal per game. I mean, this kid can play. There's no doubt about that. He is definitely the most underrated draft pick so far that we're looking at in this current draft class. He was the most underrated pick in my opinion. But
I mean, I'll be honest with you. Coming into the draft, like, I didn't expect us to take him. I was not even looking at him, like, scouting him or nothing. I was like, there's no way we're taking this kid from Florida State off the bench. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we have a whole bunch of 6'9", 6'7", 6'8" guys. We don't need another Scotty Barnes. But, like, Scotty Barnes, man, plays 1 through 5, guards 1 through 5. He's just an intelligent basketball player. He's just been consistent all season. This is Rookie of the Year, keep in mind. This ain't Rookie of the couple weeks, of the month, the year. There's only been one rookie out of those 3 that's been consistent all season, in my opinion, and that's Scotty Barnes. So, he's my Rookie of the Year. NBA, you better give it to him. So, yeah, we can move on, though.
I can't.
That's all I got to say.
I can't argue with that point. I think that this might be the closest race that we have today.
True.
And for this year's awards. I mean, all 3 of these players are phenomenal players, and it's going to be really interesting to see who wins this one.
Yeah, I'm excited. You know, I'm ready to burn some buildings down if they don't give it to Scotty Barnes, but, you know what I mean, we'll see what happens.
Now, moving on from that, we have the Coach of the Year. Now, I mean, this one could be really any coach, honestly, that has had success this year, but I'm looking at 3 in particular, and that's going to be Eric Spoelstra of the Miami Heat, Monty Williams of the Phoenix Suns, and Taylor Jenkins of the Memphis Grizzlies.
Look, man, this one was also very tough for me. I thought Taylor Jenkins was a phenomenal pick. Like, it's just so hard. I think I have to give it to Monty Williams, though, this year, just because of the historic season the Suns had and the fact that he didn't win it last year after their, like, bit of a surprise season. Like, they were really good last year, and he didn't win it. But Taylor Jenkins, what he's been able to do in Memphis with that team, like, they're so young, they're so hungry. He just got them playing so good. I can't be mad at either Monty Williams or Taylor Jenkins winning the award, but I ended up going Monty Williams.
I have to agree with you. I mean, both of these coaches absolutely deserve this award.
Yes.
I mean,
they should do a co-award or something for this one. Yeah.
None of us have really were ever expecting the Suns to really be this good.
Right.
And Monty Williams is a big part of the reason that they're this good. And on the flip side of that, Taylor Jenkins is a great coach. I mean, I think Memphis really surprised everybody winning that play-in spot against the Warriors to get into the playoffs.
Yes.
And they've only progressed from there. I mean, a big part of it's obviously going to be the great progression of John Morant. A lot of it's going to be the great progression of other players like Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr., but you're only as good as the person leading you.
Facts.
And when you have a coach like Taylor Jenkins, who I feel like none of us really have ever heard of.
That's a great point. I was just going to say that.
Before the start of the season. I mean, with the progression that they had this year, he's my pick for Coach of the Year this year.
I'm with you, man. Honestly, like, again, if I could give it to both people, I would. It was tough. But, yeah, Taylor Jenkins deserves so much love. Like, real talk. He's a phenomenal coach. So, yeah, big congrats to Memphis. Because I think they're the most surprising team of the year this year. If you really think about it. I mean, they're second seed. Like, I wouldn't have said second seed for Memphis Grizzlies this year. So, big credits to them and to Taylor Jenkins. So, yeah.
Now, moving on from that, we have, in my opinion, probably the easiest one to pick.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
The sixth player of the year award. Obviously, this is given to the player who is your first spark plug off the bench. Now, we have a few candidates for it. I mean, you have a player like Kevin Love, who's kind of had a little bit of a resurgent year for Cleveland. You have a player like Cam Johnson from the Suns. It's got to be the man from Memphis. He's got a song about him, Mr. Tyler Hero.
Yeah. I mean, it's not even a discussion, really. I'm sorry. To Kevin Love and to all these other people, it's not close. I'm not the biggest Tyler Hero fan, and I'm going to tell you, it's not close. Like, he deserves it. Just give it to him. We move. Yeah.
For our last award, this is probably the hardest one to pick, in my opinion. There's a lot of players that this falls under, and that's going to be Most Improved Player. I made a few honorable mentions before we really get into this section of the topic, but, I mean, Miles Bridges had a phenomenal season early on, didn't really stick with it throughout the entire season. You also have a player like Desmond Bane, who had a very good sophomore season, but with the amount of players that progressed this year, he can't be on that list for me. And then we also have a player like Anthony Simons, who really stepped up when Damian Lillard went down.
Yes, for sure. You kind of see why they traded CJ McCollum because of his emergence. Desmond Bane, I love. I think maybe next year he could be a contender for this award too. But yeah, Miles Bridges is also an interesting one. It's gonna be interesting to see what he does in free agency because he's a restricted free agent, I'm pretty sure. So like maybe a Detroit Piston. Think about it.
Who are our candidates really for this award? I mean, I feel like John Morant is probably going to be on that list. They might give him the Luka Doncic treatment where, he hasn't really progressed all that much, but he's also progressed a lot at the same time and has really led his team to improve at everything overall.
Yep.
We also have a player, the biggest surprise, but the one that I'm happiest with for sure was Jordan Poole. I mean, going from probably, I want to say it was 12 points a game last year to 18.5 points this year. He improved every single stat and was a really key piece for this Warriors team early on when they were still without Clay.
Yeah, I love Jordan Poole. I really do. When they drafted him first round, I was like, huh? Like, the Warriors really took Jordan Poole with this pick, but it's panned out well for them. I would take him in Toronto, no doubt. Like, we need a guy like that. So, I mean, he's a phenomenal player. I love Jordan Poole. I think he's exactly what the kind of piece every championship team needs. He just brings that scoring punch. He's a great player. I love him.
I love that you mentioned when he got drafted because that actually got me really excited because, I mean, I'm a big Jordan Poole fan, always have been. And he was a great shooter in college, but I was like, that's a great move. He is drafted by a team that is known for their shooting. Give him a few years, and he's going to be able to shoot like Curry, like Clay, and look at him now.
Yeah, he's great. They got someone to, after Clay starts, regressing as a player, they got Jordan Poole to step up into his role, so they won. They really did.
It really helped with their success early on for sure. Mm-hmm. Now, another candidate that I think really surprised everybody this year was Darius Garland of the Cleveland Cavaliers, going up from like 17 points a game to 21 and 8 assists per game. I feel like last year you could say that the Cavaliers were really good at trying to build around Colin Sexton. But after he went down with, a season-ending injury, they really made Darius Garland the man, and he really stepped up and showed how he can lead this team.
He deserves a lot of love. He's a big reason why Cleveland is as good as they are this season, really. Him and Jared Allen, in my opinion. But, 21 points per game, 8.6 assists per game. Like, this guy's a baller, and he deserves to be an all-star this year. And, I like him as a player a lot, but I don't think he's the most improved player out of, all these other options. But he's a phenomenal player, no doubt about it. He deserves all the credit and love, so...
And the last player on this list that we have as our final candidate, I think is probably going to be both of our picks for most improved player, and that's going to be DeJounte Murray of the San Antonio Spurs. Now, he helped lead his team to the 10th seed, so he narrowly made it into the play-in tournament. He's a great player. I mean, he is one of 3 first-time All-Stars that we've mentioned on this list.
Yes.
And he leads his team in almost every single category. I mean, points, assists, steals. Second on his team in rebounds as a guard. I know he's a tall guard, but he's still a guard nonetheless, and he's second on his team in rebounding.
Yeah, I mean, near triple-double this season. And, he was able to lead his team to a better record than the Lakers this year. What else must I say? You know what I mean? Like, the Lakers are looked at as championship contenders going into this season, and obviously they didn't pan out. But, like, DeJounte Murray is just a baller. Like, he does every little thing you'd want out of a point guard. And he has that feel of, like, a point forward almost, just because of his height and like his ability to do so many different things. I love DeJounte Murray. He's a great player, and he's my MIP this year for sure.
Now, moving on to the next topic of this video, we are going to be talking about NBA playoffs. Now, by the time that this video is posted, the play-in tournament will be all said and done, and everything else will be set in stone for the start of the actual NBA playoffs. So we're going to start talking about with the plan, starting with the 9th seed Pelicans versus the 10th seed Spurs. What do you think about this matchup?
This one is so tough to call. I think a lot of these play-in matches in general are tough to call. I narrowly went with the Pelicans to win that game. DeJounte Murray missing the last few games of the season kind of concerns me. I don't know if he'll be ready quite, to just jump into this game and, be a huge, big-time piece for them right away. So I went with the Pelicans to win that game, narrowly though.
Now, if DeJounte is healthy for that game, I mean, I feel it's gonna be a very tight game nonetheless. But I'm actually gonna have the Spurs narrowly win this game. The Pelicans have been a little bit of a surprising team this year. I've been very impressed with how they've been playing. But I just don't think that they're gonna be able to get past the Spurs in this one.
I think CJ McCollum having that experience, been there, done that. I think he probably is gonna have a big game tonight for them and help lead them through that game. So
true.
Yeah.
Now, after that, we also have the 7th seed Timberwolves versus the 8th seed Clippers. This is going to be a dogfight, to say the least.
Yeah, even tougher to pick this one. I went with the Timberwolves tonight just because I think they have better overall players on the court. The Clippers are really deep. Paul George is back. Norman Powell's back. it could go either way, but I'm going to go with the Timberwolves to take the 7th seed.
I'm also going to take the Timberwolves on this one. I think it's going to be a very tight matchup for sure. And the only thing that's really going to be a question about this game is, I mean, if Kawhi's back for the playoffs, this Clippers team is going to be very dangerous. But, I mean, I don't think Paul George is going to be able to do it all by himself, and that's why I had the Timberwolves winning this one. For after that, we both have the Clippers. You have them playing against the Pelicans. I have them playing against the Spurs, but we both have the Clippers winning that to get that 8th seed.
Yeah, yup. I got the Clippers going to the 8th seed. Again, they're the deepest team, after Minnesota, I think, left, so got to go with them. I think they have Paul George is probably the best player out of any of those 3 teams that they offer, so got to go with the Clippers there.
Now, moving on to the East side, we're going to start out with 9th seed Atlanta Hawks versus the 10th seed Charlotte Hornets. What do you think about this matchup?
This is an interesting one. This is a fun one. This is a fun game right here. Like, LaMelo, Trae Young. Like, it's going to be a fun point guard matchup there. I went with the Hawks, but I didn't want to. I went with the Hawks, though. I went with the Hawks.
As Shaq would say, oh.
Yeah.
Dropping money all over the place.
I'm actually going to go with the Hornets on this one. I think that the Hornets are a very surprising team. I actually thought they're going to be a little bit better this year.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they're still a very, very young team with a lot of very young pieces. And besides the Knicks, I mean, the Hawks have been the most disappointing team to watch this season, in my opinion.
I agree. I don't know what their future looks like, honestly. Trae Young's great, but they still need another guy, So
absolutely.
It'll be interesting to see what they do in the offseason.
Now, moving on from that, we have a very nice matchup between the 7th seed Brooklyn Nets. Never thought I would ever say that. Between the 8th seed Cleveland Cavaliers. What do you think about this one?
It would be so crazy. The Cavs have this amazing year, no one expected, and they don't even make the playoffs. Ain't that something? That is how tough this play-in tournament is. If you're in it, you hate it. If you're out of it, you love it. I went with the Nets, of course. I can't bet against Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in the play-in. If they fail me, so be it. You know what I mean? That's on them. Like, I got to go with the Nets,
I also got to go with the Nets. I mean, we finally are seeing what we wanted to see for the last 3 years. I mean,
Yeah.
Kyrie and Kevin Durant are finally fully healthy. They're finally on the same page, and they've been playing out of their mind these last few weeks.
Yeah.
So I went with the Nets. A surprise for, I think, a lot of people, I actually have the Hornets being the Cavaliers in the next round. But I think that one's going to be very dependent on if they have Jarrett Allen for those games. If they do have Jarrett Allen, then the Cavs are going to win this, in my opinion. If they don't, then I got to go with the Hornets winning that.
Yeah, I seen that Jarrett Allen is not going to play this first playing game. So that leads me to believe he's not going to for the other one, too, because they're not that far apart, So, yeah, I still went with the Cavaliers purely because I trust them more as a unit than I do, the Hornets or the Hawks. So I got them finishing 8th seed and making the playoffs.
Now moving on to the grit and grind, the actual playoffs.
Oh man, this is so exciting. This is NBA Christmas right here for real. Like, this is the best time of the year as an NBA fan, so I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's start off on the west side of the bracket. First, we're going to have the Phoenix Suns versus the 8th seed LA Clippers. And I don't really think the Clippers have a chance. They tried their absolute best last year, almost beat the Suns. But without Kawhi, I just don't think this team is going to do it. I have the Suns winning this game 4-1.
Yeah, same thing for me. I don't think Kawhi is going to come back in the playoffs, period. I just don't see why the Clippers would risk that. So, yeah, I got the Suns in 5.
Now, moving on from that, we have the 4th seed Dallas Mavericks versus the 5 seed Utah Jazz. We talked about the Jazz a little bit earlier. It's a very solid defensive team. And then you have, Luka Doncic.
Right.
So it's honestly a toss-up. I'm actually gonna pick the Dallas Mavericks to win this series. It's gonna be a very tight series. I think I have the Mavericks winning 4-3.
I had the Mavericks winning this series, but Luka getting hurt the last game of the season, not having a timetable to return, I cannot pick the Mavericks right now. Based on the information I have right now, if he's healthy and playing, I got the Mavericks. But with the information I got right now, I got the Jazz in 6 games. Luka being hurt concerns me. It really does. I just don't see how they manage to win a series without Luka playing 100%.
Now, moving on from that, we have the 3 seed Golden State Warriors and the 6 seed Denver Nuggets. I think that this could be a very solid matchup.
This is gonna be fun.
This brings me back to the start of Curry Magic, honestly, because the year before they went on this championship run, they beat the Nuggets as when they were the 6th seed and the Nuggets were the 3 seed.
Yeah.
This has me believe that history might repeat itself, and the Nuggets could take this one over the Warriors, but I don't think that's really going to happen. I think it's going to be... I think the Warriors will be able to pull it out, but I think they are going to win in 6 games.
Yeah, I have this being a long series as well. I think the Nuggets are going to give them a lot of problems. I think Jokic is going to give them a lot of problems because they don't really have a big that can stop. Who's going to stop Jokic? Like, he's going to dominate this series. He's going to have some crazy numbers, but ultimately I went with the Warriors in 7. It's going to be a dogfight, but, Curry's going to be back. Clay, Draymond, they'll be fine. They'll make it through.
Like you said, if James Wiseman was back for the Warriors, I feel like it'd be a very different series, but James Wiseman having that setback to not be able to return at all this season is definitely a huge loss for them.
No doubt.
And for the last matchup of the first round, for the Western Conference, we have the 2 seed Memphis Grizzlies versus the 7th seed Timberwolves. Dino, let's start you off with this one. What do you think about this series?
This is going to be fun, too. I like this one. I think it's a good matchup. This is going to be a fun one, but I think the Grizzlies got too much talent. They're on fire. They're still playing well. They went with 20-2 without John Morant, right? Crazy. I got them winning in 5 games, but, shout out to Timberwolves finally making the playoffs. They're looking like the Kings for a little bit, you know what I mean? Not seeing much success over there, but yeah, you know what I mean? Good season for them, but ultimately the road ends here, and the Grizzlies move on in 5 games.
It's definitely been a great season for the Timberwolves. They have a lot of talent, a lot of still very young talent.
Yeah.
I have the Grizzlies winning in 6 games, but I think that the Timberwolves could still give them a big run for their money.
No doubt. I mean, you got Cat, you got Anthony Edwards, and you got D'Angelo Russell. Is that his name? That's his name. There we go. So yeah, him. But yeah, they got good pieces, but it's not enough to compete with the Grizzlies this year, unfortunately.
Now, moving on to the east side of things, I have the number 1 seed Heat versus the number 10/8 seed Charlotte Hornets, where you have
the Cavaliers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think either way that we both have the Heat winning this one. The Heat have been a pretty surprising team. We all thought that they would make the playoffs, but I don't think any of us thought they were going to be this good.
I honestly did. I thought they were going to be good this year. I think Kyle Lowry, he's an experienced point guard. They needed a guy like that. And I'm not saying that because I'm a biased Raptors fan. He's genuinely just a great leader. He brings a lot of intangibles to the team. And, I don't think they had a playmaker like that before, in the last couple of seasons. So that's, a big addition for them. And he can shoot the 3, which they needed. But yeah, the Heat are great. They're a great team, and I think they're gonna win whoever they play first round. I think it's gonna be 4 or 5 games. Honestly, they're just experienced. They got so many experienced players, so I gotta go with them.
It's definitely a very deep team for sure.
Yeah.
The solid progression of Tyler Hero definitely helps taking that smaller role off the bench, but really succeeding in that role.
Yeah.
You have some of the best defensive players in the league in Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. Jimmy Butler finally being able to lead his team to a top seed, which is amazing to see. They're also getting healthy at the perfect time. We just saw Victor Oladipo come back and drop, a 40-piece on the team?
Yeah, he did, yeah. But, hey, man, they got a lot of pieces. I don't know if he'll play much in the playoffs, to be honest. Even Duncan's been struggling for them, though. Duncan Robinson's been really disappointing this year. I don't know what happened, but they still are very deep.
But to still be able to have all those pieces off your bench,
you still got to worry about that. You can't
dangerous.
leave him open. And PJ Tucker's a dog. He'll guard anybody. So
moving on from that, we're gonna have the 4 seed 76ers versus the 5 seed Toronto Raptors. Dino, let's start you off with this one.
Yes, man. I'm so excited. I honestly think we're gonna win this series, and I know that's me being biased, but look. No team has guarded Joel Embiid better than us at all. His numbers against us are terrible. And Nick Nurse is going to coach circles around Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers is not ready for this. I promise you. James Harden, he's looking slow, not as athletic. He's not really blowing by people like he used to. He's not getting those, step back 3 fouls he used to get all the time in Houston. He's just not the same player. There's a lot of pressure on them. If they fail here, that's going to be a bad, bad look. For not only Daryl Morey, their GM, but for James Harden as a player. They have to win this series, but they're not going to. We're going to win this series. I think we have the right kind of players to stop them. You know what I mean? Long, athletic guys. We got OG who can guard James Harden. We got Scotty Barnes who can switch between those two. We got Pascal Siakam who can go between those two. Like, we just have so many different options. And, yeah, it's going to be a dogfight of a series, though. I got us winning in 6 games.
I never thought I'd say this. I'm going to have to agree with Dino. I mean, the Sixers have had a mess of a year, just to say the least. I mean, they started off as the number 1 seed very early on in the season, regressed down a little bit to the 4th seed. I mean, the Raptors, I never thought I would ever see the Raptors in this high of a seed with what they had going on in the start of the season. I mean, it was a bad look for you guys at the start of the season, I'm not going to lie.
No doubt. But you know what? Like, we were injured. You know what I mean? We had COVID issues. But, like, this team, when it's fully healthy, is a problem. Like, and you know what? We played great basketball at the right time. Like, towards the end of the season. Like, in March, I think we went, like, 14 or 15-3. Like, we're playing great basketball right now at the right time. Meanwhile, the 76ers are not. And, you know, yeah, I can't. I want to say the 76ers somehow win this series because they still can. You know, I mean, that's definitely possible with Joel Embiid because he's a superstar player. But, again, Nick Nurse just knows, whatever he does, he knows how to stop him. So, and we don't have to have Marc Gasol. We can put, you know, Precious Achiuwa out there. We could put Ken Burch out there, get 6 fouls. That's fine.
Chris Boucher.
Yeah, Chris Boucher, he can come in and get 6 fouls. That's fine. We still got all these athletic guys who can just make it tough for Joel Embiid.
And we haven't even talked about first-time All-Star Fred VanVleet.
Like, don't even get me started on that. You know what I mean? Like, we got great players, and I don't think people realize that, you know, so they'll be surprised.
I'm going to have to pick Toronto. I think it's going to be a very tight series, but I'm going to have to pick them in 7. Now, after that, we have the 3-seed Milwaukee Bucks versus the 6-seed Bulls.
Oh,
Man.
DeMar DeFrozen ready to come into action, man. I'm telling you, I've been telling people since the beginning of the season, this Bulls team is fake. I've been telling fans, but they don't want to listen. DeMar start off hot like he always does. But once it gets to March, April, things start to get worse and worse and worse. And now they're all the way down to 6th seed. I don't think they beat a single top 6 seed all season.
Nope.
What?
I'm very disappointed in this team, to say the least.
Yeah.
This is my favorite team to watch this year. I mean, just such a fun team. Caruso, Lonzo, Levine, DeMar. I've always been a big Vucevic fan.
Yeah.
But they've just disappointed. And Giannis is too good. Chris Middleton's too good. Drew Holiday's too good. I have the Bucks winning 4-1.
Yeah, I gave the Bulls 1 game out of respect. Honestly, I want to say sweep so bad, but I just can't do it. I'm going to give them 1 game at home. Like, Giannis, you can't bet against Giannis in this series. He's going to absolutely dominate. So, yeah, I got the Bucks.
Now, lastly for us, we have the 2-seed Boston Celtics versus the 7-seed Brooklyn Nets. This is a very interesting one because the Nets are really starting to get healthy, and they have really progressed in these last few weeks. And the Celtics are, honestly, if we talk about this in March Madness terms, they're the Cinderella team of the playoffs because they were out of the playoffs, was it, a month and a half ago, and now they're the 2-seed.
Yeah, they had a rough start to the season. Marcus Smart was beefing with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, but they figured it out. Like, you got to give them credit. Being a 2nd seed in a very tough conference. The East is very good this year.
Very good.
Like, I would say it's better than the West this year.
This is the best we've seen the East in a very long time.
So, you know, like, you got to give Celtics a lot of credit, but I think they ended up with the worst possible scenario here because as great of a season as they had, now they have to go against Kyrie Irving, who's probably going to look for revenge.
Yep.
And Kevin Durant, who is arguably the best player on the planet. So it's like, it's not ideal at all.
No, and that's why I have the Nets winning. It's gonna be a really tight series. I have them winning 4-3, but I think that they're gonna pull it out.
You know what, Ben? I'm with you, man. Like, and I don't want to come off as a Celtics hater, but I genuinely think the Nets pull it off. Like, I just don't see how they don't win the series. You know, at the end, I think they have the experience necessary. They have the talent. You know, so I got to go with the Nets there in 7 games.
Now moving on to the next round. Starting off in the West, I mean, we picked different teams. You picked the Jazz, I picked the Mavericks.
Yep.
But we both had the Suns beating them.
Yes. I mean, how couldn't you? You know what I mean? Like, the Suns, again, it just feels like it's their year. You know? Like, they had they came so close. And honestly, you have to think about it this way, too. This is probably their last chance to win a championship. Because next season, you know, the Nuggets are going to be healthy. The Warriors are going to be healthier. You know what I mean? The Lakers may be better. You know
Chris Paul's going to be another year older.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, this is a do or die situation, I think, for the Suns. So, you know, I think they'll make it happen. I got them beating the Jazz in 5 games.
And I have them beating the Mavericks in 5.
Yep, so.
Now moving on from that, we have the 3 seed Warriors versus the 2 seed Grizzlies. This one's
tough.
going to be an all-out dogfight,
Yes.
no doubt.
Yes.
I mean, we have a pure shooting team versus a grit and grind kind of team.
Yeah.
2 different kind of playing styles that I don't even know. It's going to be a very tough matchup. I don't even know who I'm going to pick yet, so I'm going to let you speak first.
Look, I was at work just staring at this series for a long time because it could go either way, genuinely, with these two. I ultimately went with the Warriors, though, because I think their experience is going to come through here. The Grizzlies are still a very young team. They don't really have the experience yet to get through this kind of series. And I ultimately went with the Warriors in 7 games. But I will say the Grizzlies are going to be a team to watch out for for many years to come, especially if they keep adding the right pieces around John Morant and Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. and those boys. So shout out to the Grizzlies. Great season, but Warriors will take it in 7 games, in my opinion.
I think we have to agree with that. It's going to be an absolute dogfight, as we said. I'd probably have to pick with the Warriors in 7 games as well. I agree with what Dino said. I mean, they're a very young team. And because they're such a young team, I mean, within the next few years, I could easily see them being the 1 seed in the next few years.
Of course, yeah, no doubt. John Morant's going to be a superstar, so.
Now, moving on to the East, we have the number 1 seed Miami Heat versus the number 5 seed Toronto Raptors.
No. Hey, man, I'm going to tell you this. I think we have a genuine chance if it comes to this. I really do. I don't want to pick. I genuinely don't want to pick us because I don't want to be disappointed, down the line. But I'm gonna pick us. I really am. I'm gonna pick the Raptors over the Heat. I think again, Nick Nurse is a genius of a coach, and we just have the right pieces to stop Miami. I don't trust Jimmy Butler's shooting. I don't trust Bam Adebayo's offense either. Kyle Lowry, he has his ups and downs. So I'm gonna go with the Raptors in 7 games there.
Ooh, I'm going to have to disagree.
I feel you, man. I can't.
It is going to be a tough series. I am not counting out Toronto whatsoever. But I think that Kyle Lowry is going to absolutely destroy his past team.
It might happen.
I'm also going to have the Heat winning, but I'm going to have them winning in 7 games as well.
That's fair. I can't be mad at that at all.
Now, finally, we have the 3 seed Milwaukee Bucks versus the 7 seed Brooklyn Nets. This is going to be another very good matchup, but in my opinion, we've seen in the past, and the Bucks are the Nets' kryptonite. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I picked the Bucks. I can't bet against the Bucks. I really can't. Giannis, to me, right now, as things stand, is the best player in basketball, and they have a better team than the Nets. Period. So I'm gonna go with the Bucks in 7.
Absolutely. I also gotta go with the Bucks in 7. I mean, this is gonna be a very good matchup, but Giannis he's the guy in the NBA right now. I don't care what anybody says. It's not Kevin. It's not Steph. It's not LeBron. It's Giannis. Giannis is the guy, and it's going to show in the playoffs. I mean, again, they are seeded as an underdog, which was a big part to why I think they made it to the championship last year, is because they weren't seen as the top guys. They were seen as the underdogs. And I think
no doubt.
Being seen that way is going to really help drive them to the championship again.
Yeah, and to be fair, like they didn't have the best season this year, like considering coming off a championship. But at the same time, they're champions. You know what I mean? And that is very valuable in the playoffs. And yeah, so I'm gonna have them going to the conference finals, play my Raptors, and we'll see what I pick there. So
Speaking of that, let's just stick with the East for this next round.
Okay.
So let's go with the number 5 seed Raptors for you, the number 1 seed Heat for me, versus the Bucks. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this is gonna be a really great matchup, whichever one it is. But I think the Bucks are gonna pull this out and make it to the championship again and again. They are an incredible team. Giannis is just too good, and I don't think that Jimmy Butler can stop him.
Yeah, I mean, Bam actually kind of gives them problems, to be fair. I think Bam does a pretty good job on Giannis, but I think the Bucks are a better team too. Like, you know what I mean? So I would go with, if they play against each other, I'm going with the Bucks either way, period. But if they play the Raptors, I got them beating us in 5. If they play Miami, I got them beating them in 5 as well. So the Bucks, not a great season again, but they're going to make the championship just because of their experience and having that guy in Giannis. Like, he's a generational player. Like, we're not going to see another Giannis for a long time, I don't think. So, got to give him his flowers while he's here.
I mean, this matchup for the Heat and the Bucks, at least, it's going to be a very defensive-heavy matchup, in my opinion. I mean, Giannis, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, some of the better defensive players in the league, and then you have someone like Bam and Jimmy and Kyle Lowry can even hold his own on the defensive end.
No doubt.
Victor Oladipo is still a great defender. He can't really score that much anymore, but he's still a solid defender.
Yeah.
It's going to be a very defensive heavy team. I have the Bucks winning in 6, though. Let's
Yeah.
talk about the Suns and the Warriors. I mean, we weren't able to see this matchup last year because the Warriors didn't make it. I think that this is going to be an all-out shootout.
Oh, man.
And it's going to be probably one of the best series I've ever seen with my own eyes.
Yeah.
But I think that the Suns are just going to be too good. And I just don't think Steph, at this rate, I don't think that this Warriors team is going to be able to beat the Suns.
Yeah. Again, like I said earlier, it feels like it's the Suns' year. You know, it feels like everything's gonna go their way this year. It's gonna be a 7-game series though. Like this is going to come down to maybe the last shot type thing. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna go with the Suns in 7, but the Warriors next year are gonna be a problem. I think a real problem. So
Absolutely, especially when they're fully healthy.
yeah. But the Suns got to do it this year, so I'm gonna go with them.
And that brings us to the championship. Another repeat between the Bucks and the Suns, and this is going to be a very similar series that we see last year. I mean, neither team really lost any pieces, but we've talked about all video so far. I think that this is the Suns' year.
Yeah, I'm with you. I got this going 7. Again, I think it's going to come down to the wire, but the Suns are going to ultimately prevail and get their revenge for last season.
Absolutely. And that's going to wrap it up for us today, guys. Thank you so much to Dino for joining us on this episode.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. I'm glad I could, speak basketball. Hopefully you'll have me back again soon, what I mean,
absolutely.
for something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? But yeah, I love being able to be on this platform. Shout out to the BaseLIne podcast, the best podcast out here. So, you know what I mean?
Sir.
Check me out on YouTube, though. I got my own YouTube, Dino. Check me out on the Sim Show podcast, too. You know what I mean? So, yeah, we lit.
But thank you guys so much for the support. Thank you again for allowing me to get to 10 videos on this channel. I have been very appreciative of all the support I've gotten so far, and I cannot wait to keep making these episodes for you guys. It's been a fun ride, and I can't wait for it to keep going.
We get into episode 100 on here, so just know it.
Absolutely. Thank you guys again so much for watching the BaseLIne podcast. I'm your host, BaseLIne Newman, and I'll catch you guys next time.